Hey everyone, Spicy Toast Game here. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope this video can make it a little bit better. Today we're going to be doing our guide for Jayce to try to help you get the most out of this champion. Before we get into it though, just want to give a special shout out to all my awesome members. Going to put a list on screen of everyone that's gone that extra mile supporting the channel. Because of your extra support, I'm able to stay here pumping out all these daily videos for all of you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you want to become a member, hit that join button down below for some more information, and let's get into it. So first, let's just look at Jayce, the standalone card. So he is a 4-cost with play, grant me quick attack or challenger. So you can choose what you want to go with. Normally, quick attack, in my opinion, is the right option, just so you can try to get that attack in and not take any damage back. But you do have that flexibility to go for challenger if you really need to take out an enemy target. Now, his level up is you've played 2 6 or more cost spells. When I level up, create a acceleration gate in hand. Now, once he levels, he goes to a 5/5, and now each round, the first time you play a 6 or higher cost spell, copy it with the same target. So this is really good. He's just able to give you some spell duplication every single round. This is quite nice. Now his champion spell is the Shock Blast, so 6 cost, deal 3 to an enemy or the enemy nexus, and then 3 to another, and then create a Jayce in your deck. Also, this is slow speed. Now this acceleration gate, this is what he makes when he levels up. So again, 6 cost slow, give your allies 2 power and quick attack this round. If they already have it or have double attack, give them a random keyword. This is another reason why you normally want to go for quick attack on your Jayce, so that you're just going to get more keywords from this acceleration gate. Also remember, Jayce is making this when he levels. So since Jayce is on the board, this is normally going to be going off at least twice. So you can kind of just double all this effect. So great to be able to buff up your board and get a good amount of keywords on all of your units. Now let's go over his Constellation. Also, I don't have everything for him. I normally try to for these guides, but there's no way I could get it this star power without just like fully buying the crystal. Didn't really want to do that at the moment. And I don't think the 6-star will really change too much, at least not how you play. It should be just a very strong passive effect. First though, I just want to take a look at the layout of the Constellation. Note that these nodes off to the side, these are all of your extra star powers. So the 3 through 6. This is really nice because you can then continue to go along this circle and then choose when you have the resources to get these star powers, but you can also just ignore them and continue around and get a lot of these very good upgrades. Now, first up, he has just his normal star powers. So when you play a 6-cost spell, reduce the cost of all non-spells in your hand by 1. Pretty nice, trying to have some cost reduction. And then you also have your 2-star, +1 starting mana, round start, create a Hextech anomaly in hand if you don't already have one created this way. So this is just making sure you always have one of these in hand. So if you play the spell, if you discard or something like that, you'll get another one at the next round start. Pretty nice. This is going to be random. So what this does, it's baseline a 6-cost focus, but that's going to be changing because when you draw or create me in hand, or each round start while I'm in hand, transform me into a random 6-cost spell. So essentially, this is just always going to be a different 6 or higher cost spell in your hand. So it gives Jayce a very random playstyle because you never quite know what spell you're going to be getting. You're just going to know it's going to cost a minimum of 6 mana. This is decent though, just making sure you always have something to try to play if you have the mana for it to try to trigger your other star powers. There's also some interesting combos with this card that I'll get into a little bit later. But then we have your 3-star. When you play a 6-cost spell, reduce the cost of all non-spells in your hand by 1, so the exact same as the first star power, but then give allies +1 power and a random keyword this round. Now this is temporary for the round, but it's further buffing up your board and giving them another keyword. This is very good with Jayce's acceleration gate because it's also doing a very similar effect of buffing up your units and giving them a keyword. So Jayce actually has very good board scaling and is able to generate a lot of keywords, even if they're just temporary. This gives you some really good upgrades, making it so you're normally going to get some strong keywords like Lifesteal. Jayce actually has a surprisingly good amount of sustain, and this effect triggers every time you play a 6-cost spell. So when you have some duplication with like Jayce when he's leveled up, these effects go off multiple times and they can just give you some crazy scaling. Now Jayce with just his first 3 is actually pretty solid. Played him for a good amount with just these first 3. He felt very good. Still able to clear some of the tougher challenges in the game. Moving on though, your 4th star, gearing up, Game start, create 2 armed gearheads. So these are the quick attack augment units. Now this is pretty good. For one, these have quick attack, so they're going to get the extra keywords from Jayce's acceleration gate. Also with Jayce, you do want to have a pretty wide board, so just having 2 units summoned at the start of the game is very good. Then you have your 5th star power, which just get an extra mana gem. And then for the last one, after you play a 6 cost spell, deal 10 damage to a random enemy or the enemy nexus if there's none. This will actually be pretty good. With Jayce, you're able to play 6 costs pretty early into the game, actually. There's several combinations that you can consistently play a 6 cost in the second round. And just dealing 10 damage to a random unit or the enemy nexus is actually going to be pretty solid. I know it can look a little underwhelming at first, but after playing Jayce and all the 6 cost spells you're playing, realizing every single time that's going to be dealing damage, especially because in the mid game, you're often duplicating your spells so they can go off multiple times around, this will actually do a lot for you. That being said though, this is one 6-star I don't have yet, so do take everything for this with a little bit of a grain of salt. Moving on to some of your bonus stars though. So first, 1 reroll plus 4 regen. The regen healing your nexus up 4 after every combat, so that's pretty good. And then we have your support champions have Iceborne Gauntlet. So when I'm summoned, capture the strongest enemy. This is nice because Jayce can be a little bit slow. You do have to try to get to those 6 cost spells. So having some way to just delay or prolong the game, stall if you will, is pretty nice. So this is nice for that. Here, the Forge Worker has Phage. You have multiple ways of summoning this card. And so giving them all just an extra 2/2, very nice right there. And this is kind of the big one. Most constellations have like 1 upgrade that's just super impactful. Like for Swain, it's his Pyromantic Wake. Here though, spells you acquire in adventures that cost 6 or more have Elixir of Sorcery. So copy me onto the same targets. So right here, you're able to get spells that already are duplicating themselves. Jayce's level up condition is just playing 2 spells that cost 6 or more. So here you can fulfill that with playing 1 spell and Jayce is immediately leveled. So that's really good. And then when you're casting these, it's triggering all of your effect for 6 cost spells twice. So this is actually exceptionally good, really, really strong. Now this is just spells you acquire in adventures. So these are going to be ones you get from the shop or like after battle rewards. This isn't just all spells you have. The ones that are just baseline in your deck don't get this, but still very nice. Then we have the Pharaoh's Financier, has the Crystal Carrier, so rounds start getting extra mana gem. Nice to be able to ramp up a little bit faster, especially if you're trying to go for Chemtech Duplicator. Get into that 6 mana a little bit earlier so you can try to get more spell duplication. Pretty nice right there. Now for the rest of these are all just the gemstone powers. Overall, the constellation for Jayce is quite well put together. I was a little bit worried when I saw some of these or saw Jayce as a champion, but after playing with him, a lot of this actually works very well together. But let's go take a look at his starting deck. So here is his starting deck. Up first, we have the Forge Chief. So 1 mana, 2 power, 1 health, strike, refill 1 spell mana, and you get Shadow Totem on this, so play some exact ephemeral copy of me. This is one of the cards that is very important. So you can play this for 1 mana. You get 2 units that are going to both strike, refill 1 spell mana. You can have them both attack. They both get a strike off, which means they both refill 1 spell mana. So you have 2 spell mana, and then you have 1 mana left over, because this is just assuming you have Jayce at 2 stars. So you can have 3 mana banked round 1. Round 2, you get to 3 mana, and then you have 3 spell mana banked. So this is one way you can just play a 6 cost spell in your second round. So really nice card. This really helps speed up your game plan quite a lot. Very, very good. Next, we have the Pharaoh's Financier. So 2 cost, 3/2 with that stud leather. Play Manifest a 6 cost spell from your regions. Really good here, able to get that extra spell generation. And remember, from your constellations, this can get Crystal Carrier, so it gives you an extra mana, which is great for, again, just trying to speed up your ramp. Next, then, we have the Temple Caretaker. This card is absolutely fantastic. While both the other ones are good, this one is incredible. So play Updraft 1, which is essentially discarding it, but putting it back into your deck. So you updraft 1 to either draw 1 or refill your spell mana. So the combination that you want to do is take this card, updraft the Hex Tech Anomaly, the card you're generating from your 2nd star power. So you'll always just have 1 card you're totally fine with discarding or just getting out of your hand, because you'll make another one next round. So you play this, you updraft to refill your spell mana. So then you have your spell mana full, which is 3. And then the very next round, you'll tick over to 3 mana, 3 spell mana banked, so again, you can immediately play a 6-cost spell in your second round. So with Jayce, their starting deck, I know we haven't gotten very far, but already your 1 and 2 drops are very good for speeding up your game plan and letting you play these big spells very quickly. So some very solid cards right here. Next up though, we have Forge of Tomorrow, so 2 costs with that mana potion. When I'm summoned, summon a Forge Worker. So you see this right here. This is also the unit that gets Phage, so it goes to a 5/5 with your Constellation. Anyways, when you play a 6-cost spell, destroy me to refill your spell mana. Now this is really important because with Jayce, you have to be very careful with your spell mana. You normally don't really want to play almost any spells other than a 6-cost because you want to keep that spell mana banked for your big impactful spells. But refilling your spell mana gives you half of the mana you need to play another 6-cost spell. So this is pretty good, keeps up the tempo of playing these big spells. So overall, pretty solid. Then we have the Pharaoh's Sky Cruiser. So elusive, grant me 2 power once you've played a 6-cost spell this game. So this can go to a 4/4. Overall, very solid. Having elusives in the deck synergizes with 6-cost spells, and you're able to get this to go down in price. And when I'm summoned, draw a spell. So overall, very solid card for you. Next, then we have Patrol Wardens. So 3 cost, when I'm drawn, it costs 1 less. 4/3 stat line and Challenger. This is kind of the least impactful unit in your entire deck. If you need to cut a card, this is normally my go-to to cut. Because even if you draw this round 1, you don't want to be playing this. You want to be playing one of your other cheaper units that gives you that extra spell mana. In general, this card just doesn't really do much for you. If you need to cut a card, this is the one to go for. Next then we have Jayce for the 4 mana, and then we have 2 6-costs. So we have Assembly Line, summon 2 Forge Workers. So you see right here, the same card that gets that Phage. And then this also has the Hand Sensor. Not really that big of an upgrade, but it's something. Then we get the Shock Blast. Now this is pretty big. Remember, this is Jayce's champion spell. So if you have Jayce on the board, any extra copies of him turn into this spell. So that's pretty good. And this also gets 2 upgrades on it. So Charging Sigil, so 2 extra damage. So this is going to do 5 damage in each iteration. Then also Summoning Beacon, summon a follower with my cost from your region. So this is doing good damage, also summoning a 6-cost. Very solid. Let's briefly go over what level you get some of these upgrades at. So at level 2, you're able to get your Forge Chief with Shadow Totem. Absolutely fantastic, really helping you get your mana ramp going right at the start of the game. At 3, Assembly Line gets Hand Sensor. Really the most meaningless upgrade, to be honest. At 6, though, Forge of Tomorrow gets Mana Potion. Nice being able to play this earlier in the game, or round 1 if you need it. At 9, Sky Cruiser gets Ancient Coin, again, helping you just have cheaper cards to play. Really nice to get that earlier on. At 12, the Financier gets Studded Leather. It's okay, a little bit of extra stats, not the most impactful though for this card. At 15, the Caretaker gets Giant Spell, so 2 extra health, so it goes to a 2/5. Really good, just working as a blocker, again, trying to help you stall out your game until you start dropping your big spells. At 18, Shock Blast gets the Charging Sigil, so that 2 extra damage. Really nice, especially for any spell that's dealing multiple damage instances. 21, Patrol Wardens get Skirmishing Saber. Okay, but not really gonna help you that much. You're playing this card not even that often. At 24, Sky Cruiser gets Arcane Knowledge, so when I'm summoned, draw a spell. Actually a pretty impactful upgrade for you. 27, Shock Blast gets Summoning Beacon, so it's also summoning a follower from your region, so that is quite nice. And then that is the last upgrade as far as items on your deck. Let's take a look at relics now. And while this is a solid build, let's actually go and start with the common relics. So up first, Z-Drive Prototype, start adventures with 2 extra rerolls. Very solid for you. You really want to be sure you're getting the right powers, so having some extra rerolls is quite nice for that. Star Child Staff, Game Start Healer Nexus 5. Always good, especially for some decks that can be a little bit slower, such as Jayce, especially when you first start out. Chameleon's Necklace, Game Start, create 2 copies of me in your deck. Pretty much always the go-to, especially for Jayce. You're really going to rely on playing him to get him leveled and then have him start duplicating your spells. He is very powerful for you, generally your main win condition, so making sure you can play him, very helpful. And then the last 2 I'll shout out is Lost Chapter, refill your spell mana. Pretty good, especially if you're not using his signature relic, which you won't when you first play him. But refilling your spell mana, so you can try to play some more 6-cost spells right away. Very handy. And then you can go for Storm Razor, Quick Attack. You can take this and then give him Challenger when you play him, so you can have that Quick Attack Challenger combo. Very powerful. In general, though, I would really just go for Chameleon's Necklace, as you want to be sure you're playing your Jayce. Now, as far as some rare relics go, Chemtech Duplicator is very nice. When you play a spell, if you have 6 or more mana gems, copy it with the same target. Normally Jayce, especially earlier on, your matches are going to go past that point. So just having some extra spell duplication is really nice, especially because Jayce will be on the board for this to activate, and Jayce is also going to be doubling your spells. So you can just have some crazy power going just from playing like any 6 or more cost spell and having been duplicated multiple times. So this is very handy for you. Crown Guard Inheritance, my level up rally. Very nice for Jayce because when he levels up, he creates this acceleration gate in hand. So you can play this, Jayce duplicates it because that's his effect when he levels up. And this just normally is how you're closing out games. So being able to immediately play this and attack is incredibly powerful. So that rally, really good, especially if you're able to pair it with his Hextech Battery, which is his rare relic, gives you a little bit of stats. When I level up, refill 3 mana. If I'm Jayce, refill 6 mana instead. So this is very handy. You can have your Jayce already on the board, play a 6 cost spell. If that levels up Jayce, he then refills your mana, so you can just play his acceleration gate that he generates. Or if you drop Jayce when he's leveled, he'll then refill your mana. Although there is a little bit of a bug where he'll refill your mana other than his cost. So normally when you're playing Jayce, he's only going to cost like 2 because you've already played a couple other big spells to reduce down his price. But just know whatever mana you have to pay for Jayce, he'll refill 6 mana other than that. So it's a little bit of a bug, but just be aware of that. Now, as far as some other solid rare relics, Troll King's Crown, not bad. Allies have Overwhelm. This isn't as needed for Jayce because since you're giving all your units so many keywords, they're normally often going to get some elusive or overwhelm, so you're often going to have enough damage to end the game, but just making sure that your units have Overwhelm is pretty good. And then I believe this also increases the odds that if they already have Overwhelm, they'll roll a different keyword from your star powers, so you're more likely to get some of those powerful effects like Lifesteal. Grand General's Counterplan can be okay. Round start, create a fleeting copy of me in hand. Normally, Jayce is actually able to close out games pretty quickly once he's on the board, so some of these round start effects aren't as impactful. So Grand General's Counterplan and Archangel Staff can be decent if you find your games are going a little bit long, but they're actually probably not quite as good as you would probably initially expect. Blade Rack, allies have Challenger, pretty much the same thing with the Overwhelm relics. Still good and solid to have, especially since you're trying to have an entire board when you play Jayce, but not quite as neat as it might be with many other champions, just because often you're giving these units so many keywords, they're going to be rolling some Challenger anyways, but still nice to have. Archangel Staff, similar to Grand General's Counterplan. Normally Jayce is able to end games fairly quickly once he's on the board, so these round start effects aren't as needed, but it is still a very powerful effect to help you play more of your spells. Arcane Comment, like I just said, Jayce normally is ending pretty quickly, but this is giving you a 6 cost spell in your hand at every single round start, so that can also be decent if you want to pair it with like Archangel Staff. Taking a look at some epic relics now. We obviously have Jayce's Hextech Battery, which is very good for you, but another one you can actually pair with it is the Starforged Gauntlets. So this is already giving you some stats, so you're closer to Titanic, so you can just throw on another stat relic. Now you can go for the Luminous Orb, but if you also wanted to go for like the Fist here, that would also work. But you can just have very powerful effect of getting the +1 starting mana, helping you ramp up even faster, and then the great effect of Jayce refilling your spell mana so you can try to end games very quickly. So this is another great build to go with if you have Starforged Gauntlets. Now, as far as some other rare relics, you could go for the Secret Technique. When an ally gains stats from a spell, it gains twice that many instead. You are going to be buffing up your units with your Acceleration Gate, so this going off multiple times is going to help your units get even stronger. Fairly niche since this is the main way you're going to be buffing up your units, so it's not like it's going to be that consistent. But if you just want to have a massive board from your Acceleration Gates, this would be pretty fun. Also, Packed Powder, and the same with like Scourge's Stash. If you want to try to get Jayce on the board a little bit earlier, either of those can be pretty solid for you. You're not damaging the enemy nexus too often though, so the extra scaling here won't matter as much. So if you just want to use the Scourge's Stash, also decent. And that's about it for Epic Relic, although I will say Echoing Spirit is one you actually don't want to use. Yes, you'd get more copies of Jayce, but anything that has cost reduction is actually something you want to avoid. With Jayce, all of his effects are about 6 or higher cost spells. If you reduce down his champion spell by 1 to make it a 5 cost, then you're not triggering all of his effects. So anything that's cost reduction, such as like Echoing Spirit, is actually something you want to stay away from. That's about it for the in-game portion though. Let's go take a look at what powers you might want to look for, as well as some cards to look out for, and then we'll finish up with Jayce's overall ranking. All right, so taking a look at some powers here. Up first here on the left, we have Gearing up, game start, summon 2 armed gearheads. Now, this is actually the same power you get for your 4-star in your Constellation, and it does actually work out pretty well for you. Now, the armed gearheads, they're those 1-cost quick attack augment units, and quick attack and augment works out really good for you. That quick attack really synergizes well with the acceleration gate that Jayce is able to make, but also it's just really good having units on your board. So while gearing up is probably the best out of any of the powers that summons a unit, pretty much any power you can get that summons any units at the start of the game is something you want to look out for. With Jayce, you really want to be buffing up your board and have a full board. So just being able to start off with units on your board is actually very, very good for you. And then next here, we have slow but steady here in the middle. When you play a slow spell, copy it onto the same targets. This is exceptionally good for you, very similar to like Lux. A lot of the spells you're casting, those 6 cost or higher, most of them are going to be slow. So you're just able to get them to go off twice, which most of your benefits are from playing these 6-cost spells. So just having that benefit doubled is really good, in addition to the spell even going off twice as well. This one, and then also the sorcery round start refill your spell mana. Both of these, again, very similar to the original Lux, are the 2 pretty much best powers you want to look out for. Being able to have your spell mana refilled every single round just makes it so much easier to play your 6-cost spells. Because if you have your 2nd star power, you start off with 2 mana, then round 2, you have 3 mana, and then your spell mana always being refilled. So from that point forward, you can just play a 6-cost spell every single round and trigger all of those effects. So all 3 of these are excellent, but the slow but steady and sorcery are really the best powers, especially best rare powers you want to be looking for in game. Moving on then, we have a flexible game plan. So game start, draw 2. This is actually, while very simple, really nice for you. For one, you want to be sure you can draw your Jayce. He's really important to get on your board and leveled so you can start duplicating your spells. But then also you have some very important cards that you want in your starting hand, such as your Forge Chief to be able to refill your spell mana, and then also the Caretaker to again refill your spell mana. You want to be ending the first round with 3 spell mana banked, so that round 2 you can immediately play a 6-cost card. So having just this little bit of extra draw so you can start your game with the right setup is actually quite important. Then here in the middle, domination round start rally. With Jayce, you are pretty focused on your units. Being able to keep the pressure on and attack every single round is really nice, especially when you play Jayce and he levels. You drop your acceleration gate, you want to be attacking that turn. Having the rally just means you can play Jayce as soon as you get the opportunity. You don't necessarily have to wait to make sure you have the attack token. I will say that the domination and the round start rally, while it is very good for you, it's not quite as important as it might be for many other decks where it's recommended. But the biggest thing is just being able to play your Jayce on whatever turn you can, so you can attack with that acceleration gate, because that's the main way you're actually able to win. Now, last for powers here, welcome gifts. When you summon an ally, grant it a random keyword. With Jayce, you're already giving a bunch of random keywords to your units, so getting one more is just very helpful. Increase the odds you're going to roll those really good keywords like elusive or lifesteal. So overall, just a great addition for you. Now, we often don't really shout out too many epic powers, but there's some here that are just kind of too good not to mention. So first here on the left, we have evolution. Allies have 1/1 for each keyword. Again, with Jayce, you're able to give your whole board a bunch of keywords, and normally those keywords are temporary for the round, but being able to give all your units a 1/1 in addition to all those keywords just pretty much guarantees you're going to be able to just rush down the enemy when you get your combo off. So this gives you an incredible power spike. Crush, allies have overwhelm. Very nice. Again, not quite as important as many other people, because with Jayce, since you're giving your units so many keywords, normally you'll have enough so that you're going to have some elusive, some overwhelm, so you can still get through and destroy the enemy. But this is a nice little safety net just to make sure you can actually use all the damage you're generating. And then last up here, can't stop, won't stop. Allied buffs except barrier are permanent. This is incredibly good for you because for Jayce, a lot of the buffs you're giving are temporary. They're just for the round. But making all those buffs permanent is just pretty much insane. So some very solid powers to finish off here. Now, there's also some powers that you want to avoid. So I'll briefly get rid of my webcam here so you can see Spellslinger, your spells cost 1 less. And then Mystic Meditation. Again, this is actually a rare power now, but round start reduce the cost of any spells in your hand by 1. Pretty much any power that's reducing down the cost of your spells, you need to avoid. You have to make sure your spells stay at 6 cost or higher. Doesn't matter if it's a base cost 6 or higher. If it gets reduced down below that threshold, it's no longer going to trigger your powers. So anything you see that's going to be reducing down your cost, whether it's these powers or any other powers, you really need to avoid. Next up then, we have some support champions to look out for, or the reasons you might want to pick certain support champions. Obviously, not an exhaustive list of all the support champions, but up first, 6 cost spells. Anyone else that has some 6 cost synergy is really good for you. Next up then, we have spells and units. So with Jayce, you want to be focusing on both. And specifically, again, 6 cost spells, you actually don't really want to mess with most spells that aren't 6 cost, but anyone that has a balance of the two of these can really help you out. And then last up, we just have cheap units. Jayce can often handle the spell side himself, so just getting a champion that can help fill out your board and not worry about spells at all is also pretty solid for you. So first up, as an example, we have Lux, the original one for 6 cost spells. That works out quite well for you since she also synergizes with them. And then for someone that gives you a balance of spells and units, we have Heimerdinger. He's great to be able to generate all those turrets for you. And he actually has one of the few spells that's not 6 cost that you actually want to look out for. And that's the spell that we actually show, I believe, later in the video, but it's a 3 cost that refills your spell mana and then generates a 6 cost spell for you. So you essentially can play it for free, which is quite nice, and you get a 6 cost spell. And then last up for cheap units, we just have Jax, because he's able to come with 2 other cheap units you can play, really helping just fill out your board. Next up then, we have some cards to look out for. So here, first on the left, we have the Flash of Brilliance. Create in hand a random 6 or more cost card from your regions and then refill your spell mana. This is the one we were just talking about with Heimerdinger. Being able to grab this is quite nice. Next up then, Formula, 6 cost, draw 2, refill your spell mana. Being able to pick up some cards that are just a 6 cost is really nice. While your skills and powers trigger off 6 cost or higher, you want to be getting some just baseline 6 cost spells so you can know you can play it turn 2. Here though, really nice, giving you 2 draw and refilling your spell mana, so giving you 3 mana banked, which again is just half of what you need to play another 6 cost. So this can really help you chain into other 6 cost spells, which is quite nice. And then we have the Mage Seeker Insider. Grant me 2/2 once you've played a 6 cost spell this game. There is decent amount of units that have the benefits trigger once you play those 6 cost spells. So those obviously synergize very well for you because that's already what you're trying to do. Then here we have the Decimate. Again, just a simple 6 cost slow speed spell, deal 4 to the enemy nexus. While the nexus damage is good, you don't necessarily care about that aspect of it. Again, you're just looking for a solid 6 cost spell to be able to grab, so you can try to play this right on your second or third turn. Now, this one did have the Elixir of Sorcery, so it's going to go off twice, which you're able to get from the Constellations. That is really good. And then last up, the Hex Obliterator. This is actually one that you want to look out for, but it's because you don't want to get it. So it's a 6 cost spell that has Mana Potion, so -1 cost. So that's something you actually don't want to get because again, it's reducing its price below that 6 cost threshold. Cards like this, it's kind of bad you get offered them as Jayce, but you need to look out for it and don't get it because unless it's crazy cost reduced, like it's 3 cost or less, and it has a really powerful effect, you just don't want to grab these because oftentimes these spells, you're not necessarily caring what the effect is. Like if it's a beneficial effect, great, fantastic. But often there's sometimes you just wanting to play a 6 cost spell regardless of what it does because just playing a 6 cost spell is giving you all these other benefits anyways. But yeah, any cost reduction, really avoid. The only really exception to that is either it gets crazy reduced and it's just so powerful you need to play it, or if it's like a 7 cost spell that gets reduced down to like a 6 cost, then that's worth grabbing. But anything that's going below that 6 cost threshold, normally don't want to play. Finishing up then, we have his overall rankings. So I think before level 20, I think he's probably a C tier champion. Now, I don't think he's necessarily bad, but he does have an issue that he is just a lot slower than many others. While he does have some great combinations that he can immediately activate, like playing your Caretaker, refill your spell mana turn 1, that can happen even at level 1. He's still going to be fairly slow. Now, I think after level 20, he's a solid B tier champion. Again, not at all bad, just not crazy strong at all. Now, as far as his regional ranking, I'll briefly get rid of my webcam again. I think he is mid. He's not the worst, but he's also not the best, and he is in P and Z. As far as in pros, he's a very fun combo playstyle. Now, he's probably going to be a little bit divisive, where there's going to be some people that really, really enjoy his playstyle and other people that absolutely hate it, but it's a fun, unique combo playstyle, and I thought it was pretty enjoyable. As far as the pros, he actually also has some good sustain. Normally, you can get lifesteal pretty consistently with the kind of combination you're able to do with his acceleration gate. When you do that with a full board, which you're normally going to do, or at least close to a full board, it's actually very common to get lifesteal among those units. That normally happens more likely than not. And so having some nice sustain, especially in those tougher adventures, is pretty nice. As far as the cons, he is just a bit slow. Now, not crazy slow, not like Nasus or like Old Ornn or something like that. And there are good combos built in to help you speed up his playstyle, but you're still revolving around playing these 6-cost spells, and so you are going to be a little bit slower than many other champions. That's it for this Jayce guide, though. I hope it really helped you out. If it did, a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Again, massive shout out to all my awesome members, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.